Thank you, Vicki. Welcome to the combined meeting of the Electric Toasters and Cascade Speakeasy. I want to welcome our two amazing guests, Lois, who's not anymore Lois, she's Sasha now, and Vanessa. Thank you for joining us, ladies. We're so happy to have you here. And I'm going to pass it off to Mr. Rob, who's looking pretty spiffy tonight.
Thank you, Madam President. If you will all please mute yourselves, listen to my voice, and focus on my screen and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Back to you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sergeant at Arms. So for those of you who may not have ever been to a Toastmasters meeting before, this is our version of clapping. And we are going to have Ms. Christina be our Toastmaster for the evening, and she will explain what she's going to do. Christina.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight I will be introducing our speakers and the various roles within the meeting. Each of our meetings is organized in the same way with an agenda, the Toastmaster, the General Evaluator, the Sergeant at Arms. In many of these roles, we take turns each week fulfilling the obligations of the role. As each person introduces themselves, they will tell you a little bit about their role. Before we get started, we would like to hear just a little bit about each of you. Sasha, could you tell us just a little bit about you and what led you to join us tonight?
Thank you. Sure. My name's Sasha Slayman. I was Lois Brown when I first came on because I did a Zoom for my grandma's 87th birthday on Saturday, and I changed it to her name. So that's what that was. But what's funny is I forget when I do that. So when I was logging on, I was like, wow, someone else is named Lois Brown on here. I should tell my grandma. It was me. So that's embarrassing. So I am the Government Affairs Director at the Chamber of Commerce, and I am also a East Wenatchee City Council member with Rob. And he let me know about this group. I have been interested in what Toastmasters is and does since I was a master's candidate. I have my master's degree in international policy and conflict resolution from the Monterey Institute, and one of my professors was very big into Toastmasters, but at the time I didn't have time to do it. So my aunt is a speech coach. It's something that is very important to me, and I do a lot of public speaking, and I do a lot of ums and ands and all kinds of stuff. So I'm super excited to be here. Finally, Rob's been trying to get me in for months now, literally months, and I've had a meeting that always happens on Monday night. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
We are very pleased to have you. Thank you very much for introducing yourself. Vanessa, tell us a little bit about you, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Vanessa Wild. I am a teacher and a speaker, and one of the benefits of COVID is that I am now fully remote. So I speak and teach from wherever I want. It's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. It took a little time to get used to. And I was saying earlier, I've never been part of a speakers club, and I've been looking for one because I have something I'm working on over the next year. And I thought, now's the right time to do it. Jackie gave me an invite, and y'all seem really fun. So I'm excited to be here tonight.
Thank you, Vanessa. We think we're the best club in the whole Toastmasters organization, frankly.
Nice.
At this point, I would like to introduce our general evaluator for the evening. Pardon me a minute as I rifle through papers. Tonight, our general evaluator is Pat Whitfield. Pat, welcome. Thank you.
Well, and let me also extend another welcome to Vanessa and Sasha. We're so happy to have you join us. Even though we are such shy, retiring people, but we'll try to overcome that and let you see our shinier side. As the general evaluator, my job is to look at the large picture and all of the components that make our meetings a success. But I am supported by an excellent team, and I'd like you to meet some of these people who are on the team. So evaluator number 1, Vicki.
Hi, thank you. Yes, as a speech evaluator, I will be evaluating Rob's speech, and Rob is giving his final speech in level 1 for presentation mastery, I believe is the path. And he's very excited because once he completes this level, he will have letters and numbers after his name. And I hope that encourages him to continue on to get more numbers after his name. The purpose of this speech is that he has researched a topic and will present a well-organized and well-researched speech on any topic. And after his speech, when I'm called upon again, I will give my opinions on what I felt worked well and maybe give him some ideas of what might work well for me. These are all my opinions. And then after his speech, you will have a chance to send him a note in the chat of what you saw in his speech and what you liked and what he could improve on. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you very much, Vicki. Our second evaluator is Ian Adams, and he will be evaluating Jackie's speech. Ian.
Thank you, Madam Evaluator. Like Vicki, I'll be evaluating a speech tonight. Tonight, I get the pleasure of evaluating Jackie Graybill's speech, which is to connect with your audience. Jackie says she's going to be using an unusual method for connecting with our audience tonight, something we haven't seen before. I'm looking forward to that, whatever that mystery might be. Again, like Vicki said, I will be providing some input towards the end of the meeting. I'll be providing both general comments and comments on if there's anything she could work on or to challenge herself as she stampedes through her current path. Madam Evaluator.
Thank you. Lloyd, I noticed your name in parenthesis. Was that a just in case kind of thing in case we had an additional speaker show up?
No, I am actually evaluating Vicki's evaluation as one part of the evaluation and feedback project for level 1 of her third path. I won't be doing an oral evaluation, though. I'll fill out the form and send it to Vicki. But that is one of the projects in level 1 is, and everybody will end up doing that, is where you'll eventually evaluate somebody else and then your evaluation will be evaluated in turn. So back to you.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that because I wasn't quite sure what that meant. Then you've met all of the evaluators. Now we have a timer. For the benefit of those of you who are guests, each type of speech has a specific time allotment, and the person who's the evaluator is right on top of that. And Joyce has a very creative way of evaluating. Joyce.
Thank you very much, Pat. My job is to make sure that nobody goes over their time limit. Have you ever been in a meeting where the person who had a 5-minute spot turned it into a 15-minute spot and you completely forgot what he or she was talking about because you wanted to feign your death so they can carry you out? It is just me. My job is to make sure that we are on time. This is the sign of the times, toilet paper. Now that we have it in stock, we can rest assured that I will not be using this for any other purpose than timing for now. This will be the green. For instance, let's talk about the prepared speeches. Rob Tidd and Jackie Graybill, I need to ask you, is your speech 5 to 7 minutes?
Yes.
Yes, wonderful. After 5 minutes, I get out the royal green. After 6 minutes, we have mellow yellow. We used to have big red, but since it's an election year, this is the finito bomb. When you see this, finish up your thought. That's all it means, finish. As for The evaluations, after 2 minutes, we go green, 2.5, mellow yellow, that's right, that's me. 3 minutes, finito burrito. We will also have, if we have time, table topics, which I find is my favorite part. It's as close as you can get to improv without being heckled. 1 minute, you have green. 1.5 minutes, mellow yellow. And 2 brings the big boom. Thank you very much. Back to you, Pat.
Thank you also. Now we move to the role of grammarian. Steve, would you like to explain to everyone what exactly it is that you're going to be doing?
Thank you. Yes, I'll be happy to. As a grammarian, my job is to help everyone by listening for their use of the English language and make notations of good use and less than good use. I will report about all that good stuff at the end of the meeting. And in addition to my role evaluating is to introduce a word of the day. Given our theme, I thought this might be an appropriate word for today. Chicanery, the use of trickery to achieve a political, financial, or legal purpose. Used in a sentence, we're seeing possible signs of chicanery in our current political environment. Keep track of how many people use the word, as well as any other egregious uses of the English language, and report at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. And last but not least, we have the awe counter. Kathleen McNulty, tell us what it is that you're going to be about in this process.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. My job is to count those words that we all use when we lose our train of thought or forget where we're going, or just because. I'll be counting words like well, so. We all use them, and counting them and reporting them helps us keep track and keep on track for a better performance. There will be no chicanery in my counting. I want you to be aware. I'll be very focused.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to turn it back to our Toastmaster, Christina Stepper.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Our first speaker tonight is Rob Tidd. Based on the description for his speech, we may get to hear about some chicanery while he speaks. Technology and advances therein are all around us. There is no escaping it, and for most purposes, there would be no reason to escape it. Yet, have you really considered if all technology is beneficial to us as humans? Rob's speech considers that question, and whether technology in our hands is getting out of hand. Please help me welcome Rob Tidd with his speech, Technology in Our Hands is Getting Out of Hand. Technology in our hands is getting out of hand. Rob Tidd.
Thank you, Christina. Technology. I think we'd all agree that generally technology is good. Technology makes it possible for us to travel at high speeds over land and water, to fly in an airplane, to travel to the moon and beyond. It even provides the possibility for us to be secure and comfortable in our homes and in our businesses. However, there are times and circumstances where technology may be bad. It's those occasions that are often dismissed and overlooked. When I was 9, 10, and 11 years old, my family and I lived on an Apache Indian reservation in southern Arizona. My best friends were Dougie and Bobby. Dougie, Bobby, and I, we would spend hours exploring the rivers, the canyons, the caves, venturing out into the Arizona desert. We relied on our senses, including our sense of direction and our common sense, to make sure that we didn't get lost. When we would leave on one of our treks, we would know which direction we were going. We would check the sun to see approximately what time it was that we left, so that we would know when we would have to return. And we'd use local landmarks as points of reference so that we would know how to return safely. My parents and their parents never worried about us. They knew that we were competent, and as long as we stayed together, we were safe. Dougie, Bobby, and I, we were pretty self-reliant. We relied on our senses. We relied on our instincts. We didn't have anything else to help us to get home safely. I'm not so confident that young people today are as self-reliant. In fact, I'm of the belief that young people today are more reliant on electrical devices like this cell phone. This device creates a false sense of security in the user because there's not always going to be a satellite overhead. There's not going to be a cell tower nearby to provide the information that is needed by that user for any occasion or for any need. This device is not infallible. In fact, certain times it may be totally ineffective. Hey guys, I got 3 bars. Oh darn, I don't have any power left. Does anybody know which direction is north? When I was growing up, dinner time was an important time. It was a time for my parents and my siblings to get together and share information. We would talk about what happened at school that day. We talk about what's going to happen at school tomorrow. We would talk about what's happening in our community or what's happening in the world at large. My dad is a federal judge. My mother was a librarian. They would share information with us so that when we grew up to be adults, we'd be prepared to enter that world and not be gobbled up by it. Dinner time in many families today is quite different. Young people must be told, do not bring that cellular device to the dinner table. Dinner time is a time to verbally communicate and share information. However, oftentimes that communication is missing because young people don't know how to communicate. They are so accustomed to talking with their thumbs and fingers that they don't know how to communicate directly with people. And even if there is any conversation, they are so anxious to push away from that dinner table and get back to guess you know what, their cellular device. I'm not suggesting that all technology is bad. There's some technology that you should and can use routinely, and it doesn't create an issue. And that's different for everybody. Personally, for me, my vibrating bed. This little device that helps me eliminate unsightly hair. My laptop computer, which allows me to see and talk to people and friends around the world. In fact, on the call tonight, we have somebody that is zoomed in from across the pond. Everyone knows who she is. It's Jackie, her sisters, and her girlfriends, all on the same computer and all in the same body. I used my in-home technology the other day to watch a documentary. I would recommend that anyone that might be interested in the good and bad about technology to look up The Social Dilemma. This documentary illustrated how young people are addicted to their electronic devices. Did you know that there are online platforms that actually track, monitor, and measure what an individual user does on his or her phone? And that information is sold to advertisers who would then create more ads that appeal to that particular user, thus creating a further addiction to their electronic device. This documentary also went on to state that because of that addiction, it can lead to antisocial behavior, depression, and unfortunately, even suicide. My message is that all technology can be good if consumed in moderation. Technology was never designed to replace our basic human instincts and senses. Rather, technology was developed to enhance our lives and our lifestyles. Again, technology was never intended to replace our innate instincts. Technology was never intended to replace verbal communication. Technology was never intended to sequester ourselves glued to these electronic devices for hours upon end. There's more to life than spending all that time on these electronic devices. By the way, north is that way. I can tell from the setting sun. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Rob. I was having a little technical difficulty with my unmute button there. Before we start our 1 minute, I wanted to explain to our guests what's happening next. After each of our speakers, everyone in the group is invited to share comments with the speaker, things that you found outstanding, things that you think he could maybe do a little bit better with next time. We share those in the chat box. You can select the chat box at the bottom of your screen, select Rob's name from the list, and then the comments that you share will go straight to him. At this point, we are going to take 1 minute for those comments to be shared. Madam Timer, if you could give us a minute.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you.
One minute.
Thank you. Please wrap up your comments. Thank you. Our next speaker is Jackie Graybill. I had the window and she was sitting in the middle seat, trembling with anxiety and fear of flying. When I showed her my tool, it changed everything for her. Tonight, I'll let you in on the secret I shared with her. We are all looking forward to what that tool is, Jackie. Please join me in welcoming Jackie Graybill with her speech, My Secret Tool. My Secret Tool, Jackie Graybill.
This may be a shot in the dark, but has anybody felt stress this past week? Anybody? Not just me? Everybody except Pat. I was gonna say, Pat has some tools we need to know about. Has anybody utilized any of their self-care tools in the past week, like meditation, prayer, anything like that? Yes, so important in these times. And I'm going to introduce you to one that I learned about a year ago that has made a huge difference in my life. It's called Emotional Freedom Techniques, otherwise known as tapping. Has anybody heard of tapping? Vicki, I knew you would. And Joyce. Okay. Awesome. I get to introduce you to tapping. What it does is it uses elements of Chinese acupressure and Western psychology to reduce the cortisol levels in our brain, which is the thing that gets us in a fight or flight or freeze mode. There was an interview done, and I will, at the very end, I'll put in the chat a link to this interview so you can watch it yourself if you would like more information. And in the interview, Nick Ortner, who started the movement of tapping around 2008, references a study, and this is a replication study, meaning there was a study done, they were going to do a replication of that to make sure the first answers to the study were not a fluke. And they were measuring cortisol with 3 different groups after an hour. So the first group, for an hour, they engaged in talk therapy, and their cortisol levels were lowered by 19%, which is great. That's a fantastic thing to have in your self-care toolbox. Tapping was what another group did for an hour, and their cortisol levels dropped by 43%. The last group read magazines for an hour, and their cortisol levels actually jumped 2%. Think what the news has been doing to our cortisol levels for the past week. What we're going to do now, and I promise this is not chicanery, is I'm going to invite you to participate in a mini tapping session with me. We all have our Zoom rooms on mute. And hello, Shanley. Thank you for joining us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a series of tapping, and I would love for you to repeat after me. Or you can say it in your head. What we're going to start out with is we're going to start out with what's called the karate chop point. This is the side of our hands. And we're going to start out with some establishing statements. So I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be calling you out. Rob, let's go. Ian, let's go. Kathleen, let's go. Okay, we got this. All right. Even though I feel so much anxiety, go ahead and repeat that out louder in your head about everything that's going on. I choose to relax and feel safe now. Fantastic. Okay, we're going to do another iteration on the side of the hand. Even though this feels so overwhelming, I choose to relax and feel safe now. And one thing that I could be anxious about is the fact that I forgot to do something at the very beginning. So I want you to close your eyes and take a deep breath. Victoria knows what I'm talking about. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. and think about what you're most stressed about at this point in time. It could be anything. And on a scale from 0 to 10, I want you to figure out what number that stress is causing you. 0 being you're not stressed at all, and 10 being you're having an all-out anxiety attack. Okay, so open your eyes, and maybe even in the chat box for yourself, you don't have to share it with us, put the number that you're at. All right, so with that in mind, we'll go back to our side tapping. Okay, one more. Even though I'm holding so much stress in my body, this is talking about what you visualize that you're stressing about, it's safe to let it go now. Wonderful. All right, then we're going to go to different tapping points. We're going to go to the eyebrow point first, and then we'll go to the side of the eye. Okay, so go ahead and repeat after me. There's so much going on, and that's okay. We're going to go under the eye. It's safe to feel this anxiety. Now under the nose for the next point, and it's safe to begin to let it go. Wonderful. Under the mouth now, it's safe to feel this anxiety. And we're going to go to the collarbone, just right under the collarbone there. It's safe to feel this anxiety. And under the arm, bra line for the ladies, it's safe to feel all the stress. And then the last one, it's going to be on the top of the head, and it's safe to let it go. Great, we're going to go through one more cycle. It's safe to breathe deeply. Now to the side, I acknowledge all my stress. To the eye, and I begin to feel safe in my body. Under the nose, the more I relax, under the chin, the more my body heals. Collarbone, the more I relax, the more my body heals. Letting go now. Now take a deep breath and close your eyes and think about where your stress level is at now. Go ahead and open your eyes. Did it go down at all? Anybody, did it go down? This is a mini session. Awesome. So it may have actually gone up if it stirred some things up and you haven't gone through enough cycles. And that is totally okay. I'm going to give you a resource in the chat box for a tapping app that has some tapping meditations that are free, and it's a fantastic resource. Those are between 8 and 12 minutes usually. Thank you so much for going through this exercise with me. And we may not all be afraid of flying, but we can all use some stress relief in these turbulent times. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jackie. Very educational. As always, Madam Timer, could we please have a minute on the clock?
Minutes starting right now.
Thank you. Please share your comments with Jackie in the chat box.
Run this through the introduction.
That is 1 minute.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to trying that on a link bus sometime. See how. All right. Great speeches tonight. Both very well presented. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Jackie. At this time, I would like to turn the meeting over to our table topics master, Ron Slaybaugh, who will explain table topics. Thanks, Ron.
Well, thanks, Christina. Heck, if all I have to do is explain table topics, this will be pretty short, won't it? So, of course, for our guests, and if you aren't real familiar with these Toastmasters meetings, table topics is the time where we get to practice our impromptu speaking. So as a table topics master, I will take our theme of the evening, which is surviving the election, and come up with a handful of questions that I'll ask a few of the members here, and they will have up to 2 minutes to deliver their response. We'll just go through for the time that we have and then get back to our meeting. Surviving the election. I read that when the agenda came out. Over the weekend, I thought about it just a little bit. For some reason in my head, it turned into preparing for the election, which I believe are two different things. So fortunately, I did look at the agenda again before we started and started surviving the election. Lloyd, I want to start with you because you're the individual that always puts together these excellent themes for us to have during our meetings. So what does surviving the election mean to you?
Thank you, Table Topics Master. When I wrote this topic, I was listening to NPR, and they were interviewing some people who seemed to be on the edge of coming unglued during the period of uncertainty for the, 2 or 3 days after the election. And I got to thinking about the long-term view of history, and what I thought about was something that President Kennedy supposedly said once, John Kennedy, when he was talking to some of his advisors. And Arthur Schlesinger wrote about this in his book, 1,000 Days, about the Kennedy administration. He said that Kennedy was musing about the presidency once and compared it to being in a boat and dropping a rock in a lake. And he said the waves and ripples and stuff start out from where the rock was dropped, and then they get smaller and smaller and smaller until they're undetectable by the time they reach the shore. What Kennedy was trying to say was that presidents, generally speaking, don't have as much impact as we think they have. And they often don't have as much impact as they think they have either. And that's probably true. Let's face it, in terms of our real lives, Rob has a lot more influence on our day-to-day lives here in East Wenatchee than the President of the United States has, because the City Council actually can pass laws and regulations and whatnot that impact us on a practical level, whereas the President, generally speaking, cannot. So what I was trying to get at with the topic was this notion that somehow the end of the world is at hand, depending on who you preferred in the election. It's not likely to be that way, in my view, but I was interested to see if any of you are coming unglued as a result of the election either. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Lloyd. Appreciate that. And just overall this year, we've talked off and on about, of course, the polarization of the nation. And I thought perhaps that might have been something that was behind you selecting this topic. Pat, I'd like to ask you, this is our member that's been on this earth longer than the rest of the members. Before this election, was there one that comes to mind that you thought that you had to survive or prepare for?
You know, in my entire, for those of you who don't know, I'm 80, and now I guess I'm the ancient person here. I have never missed a single election except for a school board election. I was always sad I wasn't old enough to vote for President Kennedy because I was 20 that year. And back in that day, you had to be 21 in order to be able to vote. But I have to say, in all honesty, I never had the degree of stress that I had with this particular election. When the debates were held, I couldn't bear to see them at home alone. I had to go over to my daughter's house so that I would have some companionship, because my dog doesn't give me a lot of intellectual response. You see her every now and then pop into the picture here. And then I dithered and was concerned about how the votes were being counted. And it's been agonizing. I loved Lloyd's idea of the ripples in the lake, and I relate to that. I hope that I'm at the point now where the ripples have reduced so low that they barely touch the shore. That's my life experience. Thank you for asking, this old lady.
Pat, that's certainly not why I asked you this question. It was certainly more so out of respect, and to some degree you remind me of my grandmother when she was alive and when she was much younger. She made it to 99 and change before she passed away, but very, very wise old woman, and I certainly enjoyed talking with her and visiting with her right up until the end. Eric and Christina. My in-laws, or my wife's parents, my father-in-law is pretty far right politically. My mother-in-law is about the middle of the road Democrat, and she'll always joke around that their votes cancel one another out. I don't get the impression that you two are that way. If you are, could you describe how you survive an election? Or and if you aren't, you tell us what you think it would be like surviving an election if you were.
Speaking Table Topics Master. I'm being real frank with you. I'm having a hard time concentrating because after Jackie's speech, my Botox is still jiggling. I'm going to tell you a little secret, and you can't let this go anywhere, okay? Christina fills out my ballot for me. And if she has an itchiness about one of them, she'll ask me about it. And that's probably once or twice an issue on a ballot, because we think simpatico. And we've talked about it early in our marriage, but it has gotten so close together in our thinking in almost everything that I default to her because she has the penmanship. You want anything to add?
The only thing I will add to that is I have two sisters. One sister and her husband, and Eric and I tend to agree very closely on our political stance. The other sister, depending on who won, had already packed to move to Canada. We live in a 3-block radius. We don't talk politics at lunch when the three of us go to lunch. It's just really terribly dangerous. We are very simpatico on how we view things. We talk about him. Sometimes we disagree. If he disagrees, then those little boxes get blackened in the way he wants them to be. It works out for us. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much. It was, for me, that was humorous and reduced my stress level by a bit just listening to you two. Go ahead and wrap this up so we can continue. I would like to share. I have my tablet and gallery view here, and I don't see Jackie right now, but thanks for that, Jackie. A little bit of stress relief. That was appropriate for all of us, particularly me. Rob, your presentation about technology, I'm sure it hits home for all of us. You have to share that I really embrace that technology. My wife got a flat tire last night up Birch Mountain, hiking the dogs 2 miles past where the pavement ends. And she's pretty capable. She just said, hey, I'll be home a little bit late. She sent me a picture, and I called her to make sure she got things going right, and was really thinking by the time I got there, she would be done. But she couldn't get the tire down out of the car. It's a Yukon sport utility vehicle, and it's one of those, it's a little crank, and you have to crank this handle, and it lowers the tire down, and the tire wouldn't come down. I thought, well, no big deal. I'm pretty capable. I got my air compressor and aired it up and threw it in the back of the truck. I just figured I'd just go air up the tire. We can drive home. That works sometimes. Got up there and tried that, and the hole in the tire was a slice in the tire was too big, so that wouldn't work. So then I worked on trying to get the tire down, and it would come down a little bit and just stop. There was something wrong with that mechanism, so that wouldn't work. So my lovely wife said, hey, why don't we just take the spare tire off your truck and put on? And I looked, and they were both the same size. Great. So I took the spare tire out of my truck. It worked, went over and jacked up the Yukon and put the tire on it, put everything away, and went to drive away, and it wouldn't move. Well, the inside of the wheel was just a tad bit smaller, and it was dragging on the brake caliper, so we couldn't go. Well, by now it's 6:30 at night. It's 38 degrees up on top of Birch Mountain, so we come home. And I use that technology, Rob. I use that YouTube to find out that on those Yukons, there's a little secondary latch in there. And we went back up there, and with the appropriate tools, it still took some time. And luckily I have these 37-inch long arms to be able to get up there and reach in and deactivate that secondary latch while I had my head and my shoulders contorted up amongst the exhaust and the inner frame of that vehicle. But it worked. And was it stressful? No, because it was a problem, and together we solved it, and it reduced the stress level. It was actually pretty wonderful, quite frankly. So that's my story for the evening. Back to, is it general evaluator? Yeah.
Toastmaster.
Toastmaster, back to our Toastmaster.
I may be the last boomer Zoomer to know this trick on Zoom, but if you tap the space bar, it takes you in and out of mute, which is easier than finding that goofy little thing at the bottom of the screen. At this point, I would like to turn the meeting back to our general evaluator. Pat?
Well, I was going to try the space bar, but it was already set on the unmuting the microphone, so that's where I am. First of all, in the large view, it was so interesting to me how timely so much of this evening's meeting was. The topic, you know, the overall topic, surviving the election, how timely was that? The subject of technology in Rob's speech, we all live with it, we all wonder about it, we all benefit from it, and we're all frustrated by it. The dealing with stress in Jackie's speech, again, comes back full circle. And overall, the quality of the speeches, you know, the focus on technology, so pertinent, so pertinent. He used one little phrase in his speech. He played with words a little bit. He talked about having a sense of direction and common sense. I liked the playing with those particular words that he used in his speech. Jackie really worked to engage us, and that was certainly something we all needed. Again, engaged in the timely topic, her secret tool. The thing about both of the speakers tonight, they both stood, they both looked at the audience. It wasn't like they were looking into the lens of the camera, whether it was on their laptop or on some other piece of equipment. So they had good eye contact with the audience. Both of the speakers used gestures and made good use of their speech, of their gestures, and made good use of their space is what I meant to say. Like in Rob's closing line, oh, by the way, North is over there, tying it back to the beginning. Every time Ron is in charge of table topics, I always find it especially enjoyable. His questions are intellectually stimulating. they're always within a context that is relatable and gives people the opportunity to be creative in their responses. Lloyd's explanation of tonight's theme, if I come back again, for some reason I seem to be stuck on that image of the ripples in the pond. But what a way to think about presidencies and their overall total effect on society over time. I never thought about it that way. So what I found, and I'll come back to saying it again, is I found tonight's meeting especially relevant, stimulating, strong speakers who used their space, stimulated our thinking, wonderful questions for the table topics. And this has just been an excellent evening. Thank you so much. It really has reduced my stress level immeasurably. Thank you, everybody.
Pat, could you introduce your team, please, and have your evaluators do their evaluation?
I was just going to pull it up. So let us hear now from evaluator number 1, Vicki, who evaluated Rob's speech. Vicki.
Thank you. Rob, this is an interesting topic, and the speech was about researching a topic and then giving a speech on it. And you started, first you were standing, and that always gives the presenter energy, and I like that you were doing that. You gave us some great examples at the beginning of some technology that we use. And then you got into talking about Dougie and Bobby. And I've had the fortunate advantage of hearing some of your speeches about Dougie and Bobby, and I can just imagine all of the shenanigans that you were going on as kids at that age. And then talking about how you used your senses, and I'm of an era where we would play until it got dark and then have dinner and so forth. So that really brought me back into a time that I could understand. And then you were talking about the false sense of security that people have nowadays with their cell phones and using GPS, and you tied the technology great together. And then you talked about dinner time and how, again, back in the day, that was a time for families to be together. And then nowadays, the children are using their devices and how that ties together. And as the speech got going, I was really involved with it. However, I started thinking this was a research speech. Did he research something? And at 6 minutes in, you told me about social dilemma, and that was something that we should look into, watch, because it has some really valuable information. I would have taken that perhaps and pulled out some of that information and got some statistics, because you were telling us about certain things that were happening now because of it. And you mentioned suicide, and I'm sure that there is a statistic on suicide rates now because of social media. So since this was a research topic, I just suggest that you pull together a little bit more research in it, and then cite it so that we know where you got that information from. But I love stories about Dougie and Bobby, and I think you could write a whole book about your adventures, the three of yours, and I just look forward to hearing more speeches about that. I liked your energy. Eye contact was great. You were paying attention to the screen. You used your stage. You were letting us know where north was so we could get our true sense, and it came through very well. I enjoyed it. Look forward to many more from you, Madam General Evaluator.
And now we can hear from Ian, who evaluated Jackie's speech. Ian?
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. This speech was one of the more interesting speeches, Jackie, that I have witnessed in the Toastmasters venue. And you mentioned in your email to me earlier tonight that you were going to utilize a different way of connecting with your audience than we've typically seen before. You got us all physically engaged, literally tapping on ourselves in all kinds of interesting ways. This tapping thing is brand new to me. And I honestly couldn't help but not be focused on the reduction of stress that the exercise was supposed to help me with, because it was new and I was trying to focus on what am I doing? How is this helping me? I tend to be more of a analyzer type person, and I was breaking down the purpose of this different tapping motions and the different positions and whatnot. So I lost a little bit of the effectiveness of the tapping because of just my personality type as an analyzer type. But I definitely see how this is a very useful technique to be able to get yourself to focus in on an exercise that will help you reduce your stress. You've been performing speech after speech. You're just really gobbling up your paths. And clearly, without any chicanery, you are presenting in a number of different ways that really show us how broad of a toolbox you really have to draw from in your ability to express yourself and to get your message across. You've talked in other speeches in multiple personalities. Tonight you used a single personality, but in this personality, which was your personal personality, the personality that we know, you connected with us by really using vocal variety in a really subtle manner in a couple times that I really thought was super appropriate, where you actually dropped your voice down to kind of a nice calm level that was really calming and really drew us in. It drew me in anyway, as a very comfortable and safe emotional spot to listen to you. You rolled through a few mistakes that you had really gracefully. You didn't even skip a beat. Nice job on that. Typically somebody, when they make a mistake, they just freeze, reset. You just processed right through it. Your digital framing was really good tonight. We've all got these little boxes we're working in, and you came in and close a couple of times where we lost a little bit of you. I'm getting the F-bomb, so I'm gonna have to hurry up here. But I wanted to say that this new tool that you introduced to us, you brought us into it kind of slowly, talking about how there's a tool, a tip that we could use to reduce our stress level. And then you got us really kind of engaged in actually trying it out. And then you let us go out on our own and really test drive by following up with this information that you put in the chat box. Great speech. If there was one thing I could suggest that you worked on, is that it seemed like you're looking to the right of the screen. You're right a little bit at some notes, and you could possibly memorize that stuff, and we would have a perfect speech. Thank you, Madam Evaluator.
All right, Lloyd, do you give or no, you write it directly to Vicki, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we can move on then to the timers report, which is Joyce, who seems to have been very emotional this evening.
Happiness is a warm bomb. Hello. I have enjoyed myself this evening. Let's start with the table topics timing. Lloyd, you had 1 minute, 53 seconds. Pat, 1 minute, 33 seconds. We had a joint venture between Eric and Christina, which led us to 1 minute and 47 seconds. The prepared speeches, Rob, 8 minutes and 26 seconds, but it was very entertaining. It was very entertaining. What you had in time, you made up for in entertainment. I don't begrudge you that. Jackie, you had 7 minutes and 56 seconds, but I was entertained. Tappity tappity makes me happy. As for the evaluations, Vicki, 2 minutes, 50 seconds. Ian, 3 minutes, 54 seconds. Therein ends my report.
Thank you very much. Our grammarian, Steve, what news do you have for us?
Thank you. I may have had an attention deficit issue tonight. I felt like I listened fairly well, but I didn't pick up any really fabulous use of the English language, nor did I really hear anything that was fingernails on a chalkboard kind of stuff. I too heard Rob's use of sense of direction and common sense, and like the idea that you tied those thoughts together and they're similar but different ways. I like that. Use of the word of the day, once by Ian, once by Kathleen, Christina, and Jackie, and that's everyone. That's my report. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, our awe counter, Kathleen.
Thank you. A very good night tonight. Typically, the person who speaks the most has the most ahs. I want to start right out by saying, Rob, you did a great job. One repeated word. That's all I picked up. Overall, the issues tonight were so, as well as the word and. Pat had one 4 so's, 1 but, and a few ands. Vicky had 1 2 so's, a few ands. Ian, 1 so, 2 buts, 1 repeated word. Joyce, I got nothing on you. Steve, I got nothing on you. Jackie, great job tonight. 3 so's, 3 okays, and a few ands. Ron, 1 2 wells, 3 so's. Lloyd, another great job. 1 so, and a few ands. That's all I got.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. And I obviously had a senior moment. It was all Ron's fault, and I gave my evaluation at the beginning. So that's all I have to say about that, and I'm turning it back over to our president. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. I just realized that I have had myself on unmute this whole time. Hopefully you didn't hear any of my laughing. Thank you for a fabulous meeting. This has been really, really fun and much more fun than the election. So yay. Lloyd, do you have anything for us while we send our votes for Speaker of the Evening to Christina? Yes. So if you would send your votes for Speaker of the Night just in the chat to Christina, that would be great. Wow, that was a big run-on sentence, sort of. Lloyd, back to you. Do you have anything to talk about?
The main thing is that we have club officer training coming up on, oh boy, Vicky, what date? The 21st, right? November 21st, which is next, not this coming weekend, but the next weekend. And we need to have 4 officers there. This is for each club, obviously. So got to think about that.
Thank you, Lloyd. Appreciate that. Are there any other comments while Christina is tabulating? Maybe from one of our guests about how you found the meeting?
Well, it certainly was a more jolly Toastmaster meeting than I've ever been to. So I appreciate all of your humor and your smiles. I'm like, oh, this is way more fun than I've been to. Yeah, and I think that's just the biggest thing for me. I'd love to join a group that's fun. So you guys just seem so cool and clearly have a great rapport with each other. That's one of the things that's important to me too, of course, if you're going to put yourself in a feedback situation, being around people who are, you know, that you respect. And I think when you're in a creative space, making your feedback or your environment safe and fun, for me, it's good. I'm not great with criticism. I can cry at the drop of a hat. It's better than it used to be. But you can tell me anything if we're all laughing. So you guys are awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks for being here, Vanessa. We appreciate you.
I'll second that. For Zoom meetings tend to be difficult, and it's 6:30, and I've had several today, and this didn't feel like it felt very familial and fun. And so thank you all for that, and thanks for being so welcoming. But yeah, this rapport is great. I don't know if you all knew each other in the real world first, but it is interesting to see such a good digital persona. So that's, or dynamic, I'm sorry, digital dynamic with all of you. So thanks.
Thank you, Sasha, and thank you, Vanessa. So excited to have you here, as well as Shanley. Thanks for joining us. Christina, what do you have to report?
The vote was very close. We've done several recounts and checked for Chads. The winner by one vote is Rob Tidd. Congratulations, Rob.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations, Rob. And you're finished with the level 1, so you got numbers behind your name. Woo, woo, woo. Awesome. Thank you all. We are a little bit past our time, so we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for visiting guests. Feel free to visit us again. We would love to see you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Night.